Christmas Eve. Everyone's gathered around. His mother-in-law looks at him and says, "You can eat in the car." Why was someone who's always helpful, always quiet, pushed out like that? He didn't come to make a scene. He didn't need thanks. He just wanted a peaceful evening near his son. But then, right in front of everyone, he was shut out, and no one said a word for him. Want to know what really happened behind that closed door? Stick with us for this story that hits deep. Ben's not the kind of guy anyone remembers after a party. He doesn't talk much, doesn't interrupt stories, doesn't try to impress. He's been a security systems engineer for over 15 years, and his mind is always as quiet as the networks he designs, only speaking up when something is actually off. He used to be married to Emma, a high school teacher, the eldest daughter of Carol and Raymond, a family Ben never truly fit into. They're loud, showy, love to talk in circles, and they're pros at making a good impression on outsiders. To them, Ben was the guy who lived in the shadows, drove an old car, wore old t-shirts, worked at companies no one had heard of, but always brought home a steady paycheck. They never understood why Emma chose him, and later, they didn't shed a tear when she left. Ben and Emma's marriage lasted 8 years. There were quiet times, there were fights, but the breakup wasn't dramatic. She wanted to live in Atlanta, close to her family. He couldn't leave Seattle. His job and entire network of projects were rooted there. They tried for 2 years long distance, then let go. It was a peaceful divorce, except her family never saw it that way. To them, Ben was the one who walked away from Carol's daughter, the guy who gave up halfway. And yet, for 2 years after the divorce, Ben still showed up at Carol's house every Christmas. Why? Because of his son Nate, the 10-year-old who still called him Superman every time he walked through the door. Every year, Emma still let Ben spend Christmas afternoon with Nate, and Carol, oddly enough, still invited him to the family dinner. Not warmly, not cheerfully, just a dry text. "If you're free, it's still 5 o'clock. Nate's looking forward to seeing you." No one said he should come, but if he didn't, he'd be seen as irresponsible. If he did, it was like he'd never really belonged there. The first Christmas after the divorce, Ben showed up with both arms full of gifts. A train set for Nate, bourbon for Raymond, a baking set for Emma's younger sister. No one opened anything in front of him. Carol even muttered under her breath, "You still trying to make people think you're a good guy, huh?" This year, he didn't bring bourbon. No flashy wrapping, no generic gifts. Ben didn't tell anyone what his gift was. He'd spent 6 months building it himself, a custom digital photo frame fitted with fingerprint sensors and personalized encryption for each family member. When someone pressed their finger to it, they'd see their own photos. Old snapshots, family moments, memories Ben had quietly saved over the years. He didn't need anyone to be amazed. He just wanted, just once, for them to look and realize he still cared. He wrapped the photo frame in matte silver paper, plain, not flashy like the piles of gifts stacked under the tree. Each one was labeled with a name, written in his neat, no-frills handwriting. Once he was done, he packed the gifts into a box, carefully placed it on the passenger seat, checked the GPS, and drove straight to Carol's house. Seattle's winter cut sharp through the air, but Ben still wore his old coat, the one Carol once said looked like something a plumber would wear. He arrived at exactly 4:57 p.m. The porch light was on, cars lined the driveway, and the house glowed with warm yellow light. The smell of cinnamon and roast meat spilled out the second he rang the bell. The door didn't open with a smile. It opened with Carol's rushed voice. "Oh, you're here? Grab those bags of ice for me. We're short on hands in the kitchen." No "Hey, long time no see." No "Merry Christmas." Just a half-thrown command, like he was a delivery guy who happened to show up on time. Ben carried the bags of ice through the living room. Everyone was already there. On the couch, Travis, Emma's new boyfriend, the TikTok guy, was showing off his latest review, a short video about his new electric car. The whole family crowded around him like he was delivering a sermon. Everyone laughed, everyone nodded, everyone called Travis cool. He doesn't just drive it, he gets the tech. Emma's cousin said, eyes lit up. He shoots everything on his phone, and it still looks better than some short films. Emma's sister chimed in. Ben walked past them without a single glance his way. No eye contact. No "Hey, how've you been?" He went straight to the kitchen. Carol handed him a sticky note list. Slice carrots, wipe glasses, clean the microwave, then plate the appetizers. Follow these instructions. Each item was bullet-pointed with a deadline scribbled next to it. He took the list, quietly washed his hands. While he was slicing carrots, Travis walked in and called out, loud and clear, "Miss Carol, I need a quiet spot to livestream for a bit. Can I use the breakfast nook?" "Of course, honey." Carol beamed. "Ben, can you move the chairs out for Travis?" Ben didn't say anything, just dried his hands, stacked the chairs, and cleared the space so Travis could livestream his consumer insights. By 5:35, Ben had finished everything on the list. The living room was set with snacks, the fireplace glowing. As he walked past the table, about to place the photo frame down, he caught Emma's voice, soft but clear, as she spoke to her aunt. Ben's still the same. Quiet, dull, punctual like a machine. I honestly don't know what I ever saw in him. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to stop Ben mid-breath. He didn't turn around. He just slid the frame to a more hidden spot beneath the tree. Then he set up the extra chairs for dinner. Each seat had a name card, each one carefully decorated. Travis sat in the center, right next to Emma. Ben's name, like every year, wasn't there. But he didn't ask. He was used to it. At 6, Nate showed up, his son, hair still damp from a shower, snow boots thudding across the wooden floor. The boy ran straight to Ben. "Dad, I've got this model I want to show you." Ben knelt down, arms open, ready to catch him. But just seconds later, Carol stepped in, voice sweet like artificial sugar. "Nate, let your dad rest for a bit. Come here with Grandma. He's busy helping with the food, remember?" Nate looked at his grandma, then back at Ben. He slowly stepped back. His face didn't fall. He wasn't sad. Just puzzled. That small, quiet question starting to form in the mind of a kid not yet old enough to read the full weight of adult silence. Ben turned back to the dinner table, setting out extra forks and knives for a last-minute guest. He wasn't thinking about dinner anymore. Not Travis. Not Emma. He was just counting now, each ticking second, each footstep on the wood floor, each silence they left wide enough for him to fall through. They told him to come. But no one really wanted him to stay. Ben no longer paid attention to the laughter behind him or the scraping chairs around the dinner table. He kept working like it was all part of some pre-written code. His hands set each knife and fork at perfect distance. Napkins folded evenly, wine glasses turned to the right angle. The small details, those he understood best. Everything else, the glances, the whispers, the blank space where his name should have been, had faded into static. The table was nearly set. Carol walked in, eyes sweeping the setup like a scanner. "Good, bring out the cheese tray. After that, go down to the basement and grab another bottle of wine." Ben nodded. No one said thank you. No one asked if he wanted anything to eat. In the kitchen, the oven let out a sharp ting, just as Travis shouted from the breakfast nook, "Everyone, my video just hit 100,000 views." The whole family clapped. Someone whistled. Emma laughed out loud. Carol laughed louder. Ben stepped out with the cheese tray, just as Nate came sneaking up beside him, pulling something small from his pocket. A Lego spaceship. "Look, Dad, I built it myself, no instructions." The kid was so proud it was barely holding together. Ben knelt down, took the little ship in his hands, gently rotated it. "Not bad, but the rear wing's a bit loose. Add one more joint here and it'll hold better." Nate nodded, squinting like he was really soaking it in. "Can you show me more tonight when we get home?" "Yeah." "For real?" "For real." A brief moment, but it didn't last. Carol looked over from the kitchen and called out, "Nate, didn't I tell you not to hang all over your dad like that? He's busy." Ben straightened up, placed the model back in Nate's hands. No complaint, no look of irritation. But his fist tightened slightly in his coat pocket as the boy lowered his head and quietly walked back to the couch. Something caught in Ben's throat, like a sentence he'd meant to say years ago but never did. 6:45. Almost time for dinner. Everyone was seated around the table, ready to raise their glasses. Travis stood, wine in hand, and launched into a "so glad we're all here" toast. Carol looked at him like this was the highlight of Christmas. Emma leaned lightly on Travis's shoulder, smiling soft, the golden light hitting their faces like a magazine cover. Everyone clapped again, as Travis wrapped it up with a joke about how the ex still can't quite let go of us. Ben stood behind the dinner table, clearing a few extra napkins and blotting a red wine stain from the tablecloth. He was the last one not seated. Not out of politeness, but because there wasn't a single chair left. He glanced around. 12 seats. Exactly 12 people. Each name printed in bold on a card. No Ben. He walked to the end of the table. No one looked up. No one said a word. No sign that anyone had even considered he might need a place to sit. "Carol," he said quietly, voice just above a whisper. "I don't see my name." She didn't turn around, just pressed a knife into the roast chicken and spoke like she was reminding someone to grab more ice. "Oh, space is a bit tight. You can eat in the car. I set a plate aside for you." No one said a word. Just a faint chuckle from Travis. Why would we save a spot for him? Is he even family anymore? Ben's eyes moved slowly across each face. Emma stared down at her plate. Carol kept carving. One of the cousins gave a nervous smile, then looked away. No one stood up. No one pulled a chair. Nate looked at his dad, lips pressed tight, hands clutching the Lego model in his lap. Ben didn't say another word. He didn't storm off. He didn't glare. He just stepped back, slowly, then turned. He walked down the hallway and opened the front door. No slam, no sigh. But inside, everyone still heard the soft jingle of the wind chimes as the door closed behind him. The door shut, leaving behind the clink of silverware, scattered laughter, and the fading scent of roast chicken still clinging to his coat. Outside, night had fully settled. The cold bit straight through the air. Ben walked slowly toward his car. His hands didn't shake, but his breath had changed rhythm. He didn't throw anything. He didn't shout. It just felt like walking away from a party he'd never actually been invited to. He opened the trunk gently, like something fragile was inside. The biggest gift box sat quietly, wrapped in thick silver paper, tied with a dark rope. Not flashy, but solid. Ben lifted it carefully, like he was holding something important, then closed the trunk. He didn't go back through the front door. He walked around the side of the house to the back, where the balcony led into the living room. No one watched that path. No one noticed. Inside, the table was alive with clinking glasses. Travis was telling a story about losing a drone in Utah. Everyone laughed. Emma nodded like it was the first time she'd ever heard it. Nate sat by the window, the Lego spaceship in his lap, drawing shapes into the fogged-up glass with his finger. Ben opened the balcony door and stepped in like a shadow. Still, no one looked up. He walked straight to the tree, crouched down, and placed the box at the very bottom, low enough that no one would reach for it first. No explanation. No noise. The whole thing was so quiet, it was as if he'd never been there at all. He stood up and looked around, not for long. Just long enough to take it all in. Travis was talking about a sponsorship deal with some electronics brand. Carol laughed as she scooped potatoes onto Raymond's plate. One of the kids asked if they could open presents early. Emma poured another glass of wine. Nate was still staring out the window. Ben didn't take his eyes off his son. For a split second, their eyes met through the glass. No smile, no wave, just a quiet look, like the last thread still holding them together hadn't been cut yet. Ben turned toward the balcony door. His steps were slow, but this time steady. No hesitation. No looking back. He opened the door, let the cold air sweep in once more, and walked out, pulling it gently shut behind him. Outside, snow had started to fall, soft, scattered flakes landing on the roof, dusting the trunk. Ben didn't brush it off. He didn't start the engine. He sat in the driver's seat, hands resting on the wheel, eyes fixed straight through the windshield. Breathing steady. His phone buzzed. A message lit up the screen. From Nate. "Dad, I want to come home with you." Just 7 words. But the first words all winter that made Ben feel warm. Not because of what they said, but because of who said them. He stared at the message for a few seconds, then locked the screen and slipped the phone into his coat pocket. No rush to reply, no room for hope. But for the first time in a long time, the cold didn't feel quite so empty. Behind him, the house still glowed. But there was nothing left to hold him there. No seat at the table, no open chair. And most of all, no reason to keep standing in a place he never truly belonged. Nate's message was still there, resting quietly on the screen. A hairline crack across the thick frost that had settled over so many holiday seasons. Ben didn't reply, but he kept looking at it, like he was trying to memorize the feeling, the first time his son had chosen him. No prompting, no schedule, just choice. He didn't start the car. Everything slowed, like his body was weighing in something deeper. His right hand let go of the wheel and reached over to the passenger seat. A small gift bag sat there, plain brown paper, no tag, no ribbon. Inside was a scaled-down version of the frame he'd left under the tree. This one had no encryption, no password, just plug it in and it played. One album only, Ben and Nate, ages 3 to 10. Ben looked at the gift bag, then back at the house. He had no intention of going back inside. No plan to ever cross that threshold again. But this gift, this one was different. It wasn't for the family. It didn't need applause, and it didn't belong forgotten under a tree that had no space for him. He opened the car door, stepped out with the bag in hand. Not to the front door, not through the balcony. He circled around to the garage, the place least used, usually reserved for late guests or someone sneaking out for a smoke. The door was ajar. Inside, the light was dim, but enough to see a few scattered shoes and coats hanging off kilter. Ben placed the gift carefully on a shelf near the wall, right next to a pair of Nate's boots. Navy blue, kid-sized, still crusted with dried mud at the heels. No name tag, no label, but Ben knew Nate would recognize it. The boy always remembered what his dad did, even when he wasn't allowed to say it out loud. Leaving the garage, Ben didn't head straight back to the car. He walked along the garden path on the side of the house, the spot where Carol used to grow lavender, now just bare stems and a thin layer of snow. For no clear reason, he stopped at the exact place where he could see into the dining room through the large window. From this angle, he saw everything, and no one saw him. Dinner had moved on to dessert. Travis raised his glass, said something that made the whole table laugh. Carol rested a hand on Raymond's shoulder. Emma leaned in to whisper something to Travis. Nate sat in the middle, a little apart from the adults, chin resting on one hand, the other slowly spinning the Lego spaceship. No one asked, "Where's Ben?" No one looked around. The room was bright, full of voices, but had no space left for silence. Ben stood there for about a minute, just long enough to confirm what he already knew. There was nothing left to go back for. Then he turned and walked faster toward the car. The cold crept deeper into his collar, but the familiar tightness in his chest, the one that always showed up this time of year, was gone. No self-pity, no regret, just lighter. Back in the car, he sat still for a moment, looking at the dashboard, watching the taillights of another car down the street, noticing a branch gently tapping against the window. Then he started the engine. The car pulled away, rolling slowly past rows of glowing houses. No one inside that house noticed he was gone. No one came out. No one asked why. And Ben didn't leave a goodbye. He left the only thing that mattered, a gift for his son, and the empty space they never thought to make room for. The next morning, the house still carried traces of roast meat and red wine lingering in the tablecloth. Carol was the first to notice the gift box under the tree. She was gathering torn wrapping paper, checking for any missed thank you cards, when she spotted it. A dark silver package, slightly out of line, untagged, unclaimed. "Emma," she called from the living room. "Who's this one from?" Emma stepped out, cradling a steaming cup of tea, brow furrowed. "Not mine. You should open it." Carol bent down, lifted the box, gave it a light shake. No rustling like fabric, not heavy like clunky electronics. She tore the wrapping carefully, revealing a thin, pale gray cardboard box. Inside, a stack of documents and a red-labeled USB drive. Travis, still lounging with his phone, looked up. "What is that?" "Tax papers?" Carol didn't answer. She pulled out the folder and flipped to the first page. Bold letters across the top. Property transfer agreement, 1247 Mayfield Lane. No one spoke for a few seconds. The house, already quiet from the post-party haze, fell into a deeper stillness. Emma stepped forward, took the folder, and skimmed the pages. The language was dry, but the message was clear. The house they were living in had been purchased by a single individual, Benjamin E. Hart. Transaction date, 3 months ago. Final note, legal ownership to be transferred to Nate J. Hart, age 10, under the guardianship of Benjamin E. Hart. "No way," Carol whispered. "This house." Travis said he was handling things with the bank. Emma flipped to the next page, a confirmation from the bank, along with an email from a legal rep verifying the sale was completed, paid in full, in cash. No loan, no mortgage. Travis shot to his feet. "What the hell is this? You're telling me he bought the house? When?" No one answered. All eyes slowly turned to Travis, the one who'd claimed he'd taken care of the loan and promised to transfer the title to Emma soon. Emma dropped into a chair, the ownership document clutched in her hands. The name on it was her son's, Nate. Carol snatched up the USB and plugged it into the nearby laptop. Only one file appeared, a video. She clicked. The screen lit up with Ben, seated in the living room of a modest apartment, soft yellow light behind him, hands resting on a familiar photo frame. "Hi," he said, no sarcasm, no resentment. "I left a few documents behind because I thought everyone should hear it straight, not through secondhand stories. This house was legally purchased by me from the bank in September. The reason's simple. It used to be my son's home, and I want him to always have a place to come back to." He paused for a few seconds. "I don't need to live there. I'm not asking anyone to move out. I just transferred the ownership to Nate. His name is on the deed now. Not to claim anything, but to make sure, no matter who's around him in the future, he'll always have a place he can call home." The screen faded to black. The video ended. Travis stepped back. No smirk, no swagger. The room filled with the quiet rustle of torn wrapping paper, the soft clink of coffee mugs in the sink no one had gotten around to cleaning. Emma said nothing. Carol didn't either. No one quite knew how to respond. Not when the man they'd all ignored the night before turned out to be the only one who'd done something that truly mattered for the 10-year-old boy upstairs, still unaware of any of it. They sat there. No one touched the folder again. There was nothing left to explain. Sometimes, what makes a person invisible in a crowded room isn't that they weren't good enough. It's that everyone decided not to see them a long time ago. But even the invisible, if they're strong enough, can leave a mark no one can erase. Not with loud words, but with quiet actions no one else had the courage to take. Ben didn't bang on the door. He didn't demand his rights. He didn't force anyone to listen. He just left the most important thing for the most important person and walked away, leaving behind a space that one day everyone would have to reckon with. Because sometimes, the quietest presence is the loudest voice of all. Have you ever felt like the one left out at the table? If you were Ben, would you walk away or fight for the seat you know you deserve? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your story. And if this moved you, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and thank you truly for being here with us.